Is dropshipping your get rich quick scheme for an e-commerce business? In my professional opinion, no, it is not. Dropshipping is a hot topic right now in the e-commerce world because so many people can set up a dropshipping business. It is very accessible, especially with the likes of Shopify having loads of dropship partners and functionality for you to just be able to get stock from a supplier and drop it directly to your customers. Now, in theory, that is a great business model. So if you don't know what dropshipping is basically where you will set up your website and you will stock other people's products, and the brand that you're stocking is going to ship and fulfill those orders to your customers. Now, you still have to build up a customer base. You still need to kind of promote those products, and you obviously can drive traffic to your website in order for them to sell. You still need to take a customer on a journey to convert when they're on your website, but it leaves you out of control of the shipping and fulfillment process, and you have no inventory on hand that you need to look after or manage or pay for in a warehouse. So in theory, that's a great business model because it's really low risk. It's like really low barrier to entry. You don't have to invest thousands and thousands of pounds into product, which is why so many people are teaching you how to dropship, and that it's a great business model and that you could make loads of money from dropshipping. And I don't disagree with that. There is a way to make a lot of money and really be successful in the dropshipping world. However, some of the advice that's getting put out there and some of the real life examples that I have seen about dropshipping, I just don't think it's being going about in the right way. And I don't think it's a sustainable or long-term business plan to have a dropshipping business in the way that quite a lot of people are putting it out there. And I wanted to do this episode because I actually went to an e-commerce meetup a couple of weeks ago. And the whole premise of that meetup was that these two founders that were running the meetup, they had run their own dropshipping business. And whilst I'm very admirable for anybody that's made it a success, the way that they were talking about it was just like that they were just trialing loads of products and just putting ads run into these products just to make money. And that's the bit that I disagree with. That's the bit that I disagree is going to be a long-term sustainable business model for you, because ultimately you as a founder need to be really passionate about what you're selling to be able to put it out and market it to the world. If you're not passionate about what you're selling and you're just selling any old product as a get rich quick scheme, you're not going to have a long-term sustainable business model there. So most of the people there were drop shipping kind of random products. They'd done like obviously keyword research to see what people are looking for right now, and they're filling a gap in the market, which great idea. You're definitely going to be able to do that in the short term, and that's going to be successful. But obviously trends change. So dropshipping is very much based on current trends because you're looking to see what people are searching for right now, and then you're going to fulfill that product there and then in that market. And you can get access to these products very quickly. You can build a Shopify website very quickly. There's so many different app integrations now where you can connect directly to a supplier through Shopify and then literally just integrate it onto your website and then go live and sell it. So it's so easy to set up. But where I have an issue with this is that you are not really excited about the product that you're selling. You're literally just selling it because a keyword has told you that it's popular and trending right now, in which case, yeah, it might make you a quick bit of cash. Secondly, you're not building a brand around this product. Like, you're going to have to spend so much money and time getting traffic onto your website, which is fine. If you've got budget, go for it. Like, why not? But in my opinion, for a long-lasting business, and if you want to create something that's going to last you into the future, you're going to need to build a brand around this. If you think about the businesses that are out there, let's think about Burberry, let's think about Topshop, let's think about ASOS, let's think about Revolve. Like, all of those businesses, yeah, they might have started in one way, but they've built themselves into a really big brand. So you have to have a brand around the product that you're drop shipping for it to be a long-term business plan. Otherwise, you've just got this really short-term business that is not going to probably get you to the goals that you want to achieve long term, and you're also probably going to lose passion for it along the way, because you're not really selling a product that you're excited by. You're literally just selling a product that you know that your customers want. So whilst dropshipping is a proven business model, and in some ways I think it's great, I think it's brilliant that you don't have to invest in inventory, but the dropshipping businesses that aren't building brands around their products, that's where I have an issue, because that's where you're just trying to make a quick buck. And whilst that's great in the short term, it's not a long-term business plan. And the way that, again, why I'm talking about the subject, the way that they were talking about this at this e-commerce meetup that I went about was like, this is your future. You're going to build this dropshipping business. It's going to be great. You're going to have all of this money coming in for a long period of time, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no, you're not. No, you're not, guys. This is really bad advice. And I find it a lot that I go to some of these events and a lot of really bad advice is being given out because it's from somebody that's just had a bit of luck in the industry. They haven't actually had like full-on experience in the industry. They've just had a little bit of luck with a product that's worked really well for them. And you can tell that it's only going to be lasting for a short period of time, and it's not going to be a long-term business plan, because one, when you dropship products, you're really out of control of the service that the logistics partner provides, because ultimately you're not shipping out that product. You aren't in control of that process. So the quality of service and probably the quality that the product is actually getting to your customer in is not going to be the quality that you would probably want it to if you were really running a brand and you had like full-on values and mission for your brand, which means there's not going to be any customer loyalty. Your customer's going to be a bit disappointed probably when they receive the product. And most of the time, these people that are drop shipping, they haven't even seen the product that they're selling. They're literally just drop shipping random products. So then you as a customer are getting this product, and you're like, well, that doesn't look like what it said it was going to look like on the website. And that's because nobody's actually doing any quality checks around like that process. So your customer is very quickly going to be like, well, this is crap. I'm not going to come and shop here again, in which case you're not going to have any customer loyalty. The other thing is that people buy from people. So if you're just this faceless brand on the internet in this day and age, nobody's going to trust you. Nobody's going to understand the story or like mission that you're on. You're literally just running ad traffic to your website, which again, in theory isn't a big problem, but for the longevity of your business it is, because you're just getting this empty traffic and you're not kind of building any relationship with the people that are shopping with you, in which case people are less likely to convert. You're going to be spending a ridiculous amount of money on ads to get all of these people on your website, and they're not going to be buying from you because they haven't built any relationship with you. You haven't built any credibility with them. Why would they shop with you? It doesn't make sense. So you might be lucky and get the odd transaction going through, but it's going to take you a long time realistically to get to your revenue goals, because you're going to have a very high ad spend, and it's going to make your profitability very low because your ad spend is going to be very high, and probably the cost of your goods when you're dropshipping is still quite high, because obviously all of the logistics costs and stuff are out of your control as well. Your revenue from this business model is going to be quite low. There's also a lot of competition. So if you are just dropshipping a random product, like as an example, I met a girl when I lived in Bali, and she had been given the advice that to make money quickly, she could create a dropshipping business. So she decided, I'm going to do a jewelry business. Great, cool. Very easy for you to source jewelry. She did her research. She looked into like which market she should sell it in, which products, which suppliers, cool. And she was like, yeah, now I just need to run the ads to the website. I'm not going to do any socials. I'm not going to like build a name, face to my brand or whatever. And then I looked at her product and I was like, I've seen this in about 50 other stores, because you're all buying or like using the same dropship supplier because everyone's got this same business model. So you're entering in to this really crowded market, especially if you are jumping on a trending thing, because there's other people also jumping on those trends. So you are literally going into a market where it is so crowded and you're not going to have very high visibility because you don't have a unique selling point. So again, going back to like the longevity of a business, you need a really strong, unique selling point to be able to build that relationship and credibility with your customers and get them to buy from you over the competition. The other thing is, so much in dropshipping is out of your control. Like I say, your supplier, most of them probably being in China, are in control of that shipping process from when they get an order from you when it gets to your customer. So that whole process is out of your control. So imagine your customer doesn't get their parcel and they're going to come to you. They're not going to the supplier, they're coming to you. So you then have to like crisis manage and figure out where is that parcel. You've got to go and speak to your supplier in the Far East and then go back to your customer, try and figure it out. They then have to go and speak to their logistics partner. It's like an extra line of communication that you have to go through. And it just doesn't really make any sense. So your customer, again, is not going to be very loyal to you because they are experiencing not a great experience from the service that you're providing them. That piece for me is really important when it comes to like actually building yourself a brand, because ultimately part of your business model in an e-commerce business should be customer retention, and you want people to be really happy, recommend your products, come back to you, shop again, because ultimately retention is way cheaper than you making ads and putting paid adverts out there to attract in new people. So that for me makes dropshipping a little bit of a questionable business model in that way. There are ways to do dropshipping really, really well. And I think quite a lot of people get it very wrong. And then they waste money, they lose money, they waste time, they trial so many different products. And don't get me wrong, dropshipping has its benefits in terms of like you can test lots of different things at once, which is great. But as I keep banging on, it's not a long-term business plan. But there are ways you can make it a long-term business plan if that's something that you want to do. So in my personal opinion, and obviously I work with e-commerce businesses all the time. Plus, I actually tried to look into setting up my own e-commerce dropship business. And in some ways, I can see how it's going to work. But in other ways, like the way that I've just described to you, the way that people do it, where they're not building a brand around it, they're just running paid ads to a website, that for me is very soulless business. It's not long term. You're not going to be making money from this for years to come. It is literally like you're going to put in all this effort and it's going to last you a year, max 2 years. And I actually had a client 2 years ago, I think it was. I had this client and he came to me, he had a dropshipping business and he wanted to convert his dropship business into a product development business because he had been dropshipping from China to his customers. He was having thousands and thousands of pounds worth of returns a month because his customers were so unhappy with the quality, because he wasn't sampling, he was literally just getting it shipped directly from the supplier. And although he had some success with some of the products that sold because he'd had them on like high profile celebrities, again, his business didn't have a long-term plan because he didn't have no customers were coming back to him. His return customer rate was very, very low. And he just wasn't able to keep up with like the quality standard that the customer was demanding, that he was putting out there to the world. So although he had a great test run with dropship, it wasn't the long-term business plan. He, after about a year in, really realized that this wasn't the right business model for him and he had to go down the product development route, in which case he needed to find cash flow to invest in his products, which is a whole other topic of conversation. But dropship can be done in a great way if you are a little bit more in control of it, or if you are utilizing third-party platforms to support that dropship model. Because like I say, to have a long-term sustainable business, you really do need to build a brand around that business and provide the level of service that a customer is expecting in order to retain that customer. So a couple of different ways that you can do this to actually keep your business as a long-term business model under the dropship kind of umbrella. One would be to go through Amazon FBA. Because ultimately, if you go through Amazon FBA and you're dropshipping products through Amazon FBA in a niche product area, whilst it's not as easy and accessible as Shopify, where you have the integrations to find those products, it is still really easy for you to find a supplier and then get it shipped into Amazon. And you don't then have to do any of the brand marketing and build the relationships with the customers, create the credibility, create the customer loyalty, because Amazon already has that. So you can utilize Amazon as a platform and dropship off the back of Amazon. That would be a way more beneficial way than you setting up a website that takes time to track on Google, that you have to run direct ads to and nobody knows what the hell they're doing when they get there. Whereas if you are going through Amazon and you are drop shipping through their FBA program, you don't have to do as much brand building, in which case it is a bit more of a long-term sustainable business model, because you're going to have consistent traffic coming to your page, assuming you know how to navigate Amazon and set that up in the right way. In my opinion, that would be more beneficial for you as like a longer term strategy to keep your business going. I still feel like there's an element of like, you do need to be passionate about what you're selling, otherwise you're going to get bored of the business if it doesn't actually work and you have to keep tweaking and refining a business model. But in general, if you aren't that bothered about what you're selling and you just want to make money selling online, I think Amazon FBA would be a way easier solution for you and a more beneficial solution for you to run a longer term business model, because ultimately, although you don't control Amazon, it's gonna have ways for you to work on there always. Like, they're a cash cow, right? Like, they're not just going to drop out of their FBA model. They might change the rules slightly, in which case, yeah, you might have to change your business model slightly, but there's always going to be ways for you to make money on Amazon, because that's their business model, is for people to sell through their platform, and then they make obviously a good chunk of money out of that as well. So in my opinion, if you were going to build a dropship business, going through Amazon FBA would be a way easier way to do it, and a more long-term sustainable way to do it than you building up your own dropship business, unless you are going to build a brand around your business. If you're planning to do a dropship business and you're building a brand around it, I think that's a great idea, because ultimately it really does leave you with really low risk, and you are building a brand, in which case you can evolve and change that business model as you go. I think if you're building a brand around your product, a really great idea would be to try and white label your dropship product. So white labeling is basically you're not developing and creating the products, but you are maybe changing the labels, the swing tags to your branding. So the dropship supplier would do that for you. There would be a slight extra cost, but it would just give you a little bit more flexibility to then move into doing product development later on down the line, or creating a bigger business from the brand that you're already building. So when I say build a brand around your dropship business, what I mean is, like, build the relationship with the customers, make sure you've got your customer database, make sure you've got your social media set up, you're putting a bit of a face or personality behind your brand, you're setting out your mission, your values. It's not just this random website that's floating around on the internet that you're driving traffic to through ads. You're really trying to get a presence out there and push your brand name out there, to really try and build relationships with your customers to sustain them and keep them in your business. This was actually something that I was going to do with my new business, Tina. So initially, when I launched Time's Not Healer, I actually did an episode on the podcast talking about my new business a couple of weeks ago. Initially, when I planned to launch this, the plan was to be a dropship business, because I didn't have any cash to invest in the business, so I couldn't go down the product development route or the wholesale route. But I really wanted to stock products that already existed in the market for the mental health niche. So I thought, right, I'll contact the brands directly and build relationships with the brands, so I have a little bit more control. And then I'm going to build, obviously, this brand around Tina, like, because dropship was only going to be a very small part of the business. So if you're doing it in that way, I think that there's more opportunity for it to be a long-term business plan, because you've got that direct link to the brand. Also, we were going to look at dropshipping higher ticket products, because that will give us more profit. If you're dropshipping products that are like £5 to £20, the amount of profit that you're making on that product is very, very low. So in which case it doesn't really make much sense. So if you're going to do dropship, I feel like you need to do it at like a higher ticket. And if you're going to build a brand around it, it would be great if you could factor in some white labeling in there as well, because then you can make it really into your brand and give it an identity. And I know a lot of businesses that do that in as part of their business model. They don't necessarily own the inventory, but they have got the brand name on their stock, and that works really, really well. So to summarize, I'm not against dropshipping. I think it's a great business plan if you don't have cash flow. What I am against is people building these dropship businesses for a get rich quick scheme, because it's not that, and a lot of people online promote it as that, and there's a lot of like complexities with dropship, and I think that the way that it's perceived online is not accurate in the way that it actually is. Like, having tried to set up my own dropship business, having been around people that have set up their own dropship business, and also had clients that run a dropship business, I know for a fact that it requires loads more work than the gurus of Instagram are telling you, and the amount of money that you can actually make in terms of profit from these businesses is actually quite low, depending on how you run the business. Now, if you kind of do your dropship business, building a brand around it, if you're building brands with relationships with your suppliers, if you're really trying to like create a customer experience and white labeling your product, I think you've got loads of opportunity. Equally, I think you've got loads of opportunity by running it through Amazon FBA. I don't think you've got any opportunity, in my opinion, by just putting product out to the world and run ads to it. I just think that's a waste of your time. If you're going to set up a business, try and do it with something that you're passionate about selling. Don't just jump on trends, because it's not going to be a long-term sustainable business plan. And, do it because you want to provide value to a customer, not because you want to get rich. Like, there is obviously, in any business that somebody sets up, there is a financial goal to that, and some kind of personal motivation when it comes to money. But you want it to be something, if you're going to invest your time and energy into something, don't you want it to be something that's sustainable and long term? That's just my opinion. You can tell me what you think in the comments, but I really do think that you can have success with dropship if it's done in the right way. So if you have a dropshipping business and you want to prove me wrong, please go for it. I've worked with dropship businesses. I've seen the struggles that they face. I've seen the lack of profits. I've seen the time investment into ads and the money and financial investment into ads. I have also tried to run a dropship business. And again, from experience of like doing that process for Time Is Not a Healer, I reached out to over 150 brands. Out of that, maybe I got about 50 responses. And out of those that told me that they would or wouldn't do dropship, only about 5 of them would do dropship, because even for the brand, they said that it's just way too much hassle and causes so much problems. The returns rate is so high. You've got no control, blah, 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 blah. All of the things that I've just mentioned. The brands don't even want to do dropship anymore because it is a bit complicated. So yeah, if you're going to build a brand around it, you're going to do white labeling, you're going to try and create something that can like be formed into a business, a longer term business plan, where you're going to go down the development route or buy it wholesale in the future and have more control over your supply chain. I think that's great. If you're just doing it to get rich quick, good luck to you. That's all I've got to say. So yeah, keep me posted in the comments if you have a dropship business, or if you disagree or you agree with what I'm saying. Be really interested to hear your feedback. Ultimately, when you're running a business, there's no right or wrong answer. This is just my opinions. So if you don't like it, that's fine. Don't listen. But in the meantime, thank you for listening to today's episode of the Commerce Club podcast. If you are running an e-commerce business and you do need some support, I am always here to help. I have online courses, e-commerce mentoring, and some digital downloads available for you to get stuck in and create more sales in your e-commerce business. I might even do one on dropshipping once I've kind of educated myself through the process of running an e-commerce dropship business myself, I might then create a course on that, who knows. But for now, thank you for listening, and I will catch up with you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Commerce Club podcast. Whilst you're still here, please go like and subscribe this episode. Your support means a lot and it allows me to keep recording episodes just like this one. If this episode taught you something, sparked an idea, or gave you some inspiration or motivation for your e-commerce business, I would love to hear about it. Feel free to slide into my DMs anytime and tell me about your business. My handle on all socials is @It'sSophieBiggerstaff, and I'll be back soon to share more e-commerce business tips, tricks and insights. See you next time.